Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining me today. So, I felt to come on and talk about these energies that came through this week and this really huge influx of energy that I know a lot of people are feeling or were feeling the effects of now. And so, we did have a little bit of solar activity and some Schumann resonance stuff, but nothing like we've had in the past. So, it's kind of interesting to me. What it feels like is like a real like cosmic energy, but also like center of the earth Gaia type of energy, and just something going on that's not specific to necessary. Of course, it's all related, right? But sometimes we would have like a ton of geomagnetic storming or like huge flares, and it was very obvious that it was like a specific energy coming through that antenna, right? But this time it feels more sort of like on every level, and it feels like there are a lot of different things going on, almost like we're reaching this culmination or this like breakthrough, tipping through point. So for me, this weekend, my son was with me, and I was so caught up in the energy of what we were doing because my son, for a long time, ever since COVID, he wasn't coming up to my house in Silver City. I was going down to visit him in the desert house. And so he didn't really want to come here just because of like associations that we've had in the past. He's 22. And so, just kind of doing his own thing. But recently he's been feeling the call to come up here, and there's been all this convergence and all this sort of cosmic support. And so he's coming up like once a month for like a week, and staying. And there's just all these things shedding off. And so, a lot of that, like the old life just kind of shedding and being ushered out, in this whole new way trickling in. And I feel like it is kind of more than a trickle at this point, almost like the faucet got turned up a little louder. But you might be noticing that in your own life, just like a lot of completions, a lot of closures, a lot of things coming around full circle, or things that you've envisioned or felt were in the queue for a really long time, starting to make sense or starting to effortlessly flow, whereas before they weren't, because it wasn't time, like with my son. So this is like a long awaited movement, almost where I'm in shock, where I'm like, oh my gosh, everything's really happening now. And then even in small ways, like our co-op has been trying to move to a larger building for several years. And so it's just been like this really, really slow process. And I had the thought, I had the intuition, like when they do finally move, it's going to line up. It's going to be some sort of divine timing, because our co-op, our town, the 33rd ley line runs right through our town. It is right on the corner where our co-op is. So, there are a lot of people that converge, and you're connecting, and you're sharing your stories, and you're sharing your heart. And you're like, I don't even have to plan social events. I just go down to the co-op, and, you run into everybody. And it's just been a really, really magical, very magical thing. But, there's been so much clearing with the ley lines, with all the earth catastrophes, the hurricanes and the floods and the fires. And so we had that really huge fire in our wilderness, which cleared the ley lines here. I was very aware of that, journeying with the fire, and also it being very connected to those of us, and I was talking about this in the last two readings, about the overlays and the hijacks. And so those of us that have been working in sort of that like real astral, deep internal way, connecting with the different timelines and with the galactic timelines, and just a very, very large picture, and withdrawing our energy from the parasites that feed, and becoming aware of the ways that we're leaking our energy to the very system that's holding us down. So I've been talking about that. If you didn't catch that overlay reading, I talk about that a lot there, and I've been bringing it up probably the last 6 months, because I felt a real quickening with those eclipses in March, where it was like the veils just kept coming off more and more and more and more. So some of us, not a lot of us, but some of us, a minority of people that are, it's sort of like that being part of their mission to really go in and clean up on those levels, and then that rippling out to everyone else. So I was talking about that 2 readings ago. And then in the last reading, what was coming through was that huge sort of purification with the tears, and with just like all this releasing, where we're releasing the old energy. We're releasing the old energy first by not feeding it and keeping it alive anymore. And then, once it's unplugged, then it's like we can literally clear it out on a cellular level, with greater ease, because before it was a little harder to do that, because as long as you still had shadow places, and this might be true for you, you might still be doing a lot of shadow work, and a way to make that go a lot faster is to notice where you're leaking energy to an old program, to an old lifestyle, to an old outdated energy that doesn't serve you anymore. And just having that courage to stop doing that, because as soon as because I went through this as well, where I found like a huge leak that I didn't realize that I had. I didn't realize how deep it went and how normalized it was in our society. And so when I let it go and I withdrew and I kept withdrawing, my energy more and more and more, I had to do it in phases. I felt this complete void space where it was like, what do I do now? Like now there's nothing, like who am I? The self-identification with the old energy and the old program and all the unconscious things that again we're conditioned into and that are just normalized. And I had to kind of go through that, and also when you're withdrawing from systems and things and activities, especially if there are entities or the parasitical energies in this realm that feed off of you, they're gonna want to get you back in. They're going to. So I had psychic attack for about 3 weeks right before and during that fire. Where I just had to persist and keep moving out and keep being disciplined and keep staying on course and not let anything pull me back in. Not let anything pull me back in. And then you do break through and the attacks stop, and then you're kind of in that void space. It's just sort of like a rite of passage that I don't know if we all have to go through it with such intensity as I did. I think it depends what you signed up for. Maybe some people just get to breeze through, and then that's what it feels like to me, like where some of us take one for the team. We take the larger hits because we can and because we have been trained for this and we sign up for this, and then in support of other people. But maybe to a certain degree, to a lesser degree, everybody goes through this. But then you get to that void space where you just feel kind of lost and kind of confused and disoriented while things are rewiring and reorganizing and restructuring and coming online. And it's just this really strange place. So that's where I have been in the last couple weeks, probably last two and a half weeks. And now it's shifting again. So again, I feel this is collective, at least for a collective of us. Or it's collective in that we all kind of go through these phases as we move along. So wherever you're at in relating to this, whether it's sort of like a heads up for what's ahead, or we're just kind of on the wave, on the same kind of the wave, journeying through this together. But yeah, so a lot moving right now where it couldn't before, and seeing things landing. So like our co-op moved yesterday, so after the fire, after the clearing of those ley lines, and of course those ley lines connecting with other parts of the grid. So some of the ley lines here that were affected connect, and I mentioned this before, with the Egyptian pyramids and with Chaco Canyon, also in northern New Mexico. With Anasazi, so all these things, all these different timelines and all these different connections linking up and having this clearing all throughout the grid, all throughout the world, in different ways, and loosening up energies, freeing souls, freeing part of our soul groups, part of our lost parts, through these timelines. So a lot, and that's what I was talking about 2 readings ago with the overlay one, where, it's just easier now to make movement, to move through where we couldn't before. The other thing that I'm feeling that's related to that is with the elementals, where it's like where the overlays are off, the overlays are coming off of us, they're coming off of the earth as well, especially with all these clearings. And I know there's a lot of tragedy and people are losing homes and losing lives and losing loved ones. But again, it's a really, really long game. It's a really, really long game. And not that we don't grieve and not that we spiritually bypass, but keeping that larger picture where what we're unraveling has to come unraveled. It has to, we can't stay stuck in these programs and in these hijacks and in this. It's the shit of the ages. So this is just part of it. It's just part of the cleanse, and souls signing up. Again, everybody signing up to play their part, whether it's doing that deep astral work and unplugging these things, or through great loss or great grief, or in losing your life and choosing to leave at this time, also releasing energy and releasing souls in certain locations on the earth. So all of it being part of this miraculous time that's going on right now, and feeling into all the releases, okay, the releases of that which has been held down. So that's true for the elementals as well, and that's something that I'm really feeling, and really being drawn to go into nature. I always am, but it's like it's all I want to do. Like I've cut back everything else that I'm doing. I just need to be in nature every single day, and if I'm because it's like a reunion. I feel it's a reunion with the elementals, with the Fey realm, however you want to word that, with the telluric field, with that which is covered up, has been covered up. It's like it's free now. We're free now, and it's free now. And I just feel such a celebration and such like a quickening in being in nature, because the old is still around, and a lot of people are still feeding it and resuscitating it. So, and that's part of the work that is great to be reminded of, is just noticing where you're still resuscitating the past. Because as soon as you, like I was saying, as soon as you have that courage to withdraw from it, you might go through a bit of some turbulence, some goblins at the gate as you move through that threshold, and you might come into a void space where you don't know who you are anymore, but it's worth it. And it's just part of the steps that you have to take to move out of that fourth dimensional trapping system and into the higher frequencies. And the higher frequencies being so loud right now in nature, again, because of the grid work that a lot of us are doing, and that Gaia is doing for herself as well, and just the loosening. And so a lot of assistance with the with nature and with the elemental realm in and moving through and just being. It's almost like, those stories where like you go into the Fey realm and then you lose track of time, and maybe you come out and it's like 300 years later. It's like there is some truth to that, where you start to entrain with but it's not like you're being entrained into like the Fey realm and you're leaving the real world. It's like you're being entrained into the real world, and the more time you spend there, the more you loosen from the false matrix, which is also loosening in all the different ways that we've been speaking of. And so, yeah, a real kind of communion, reunion energy. You might also be feeling that with certain souls in your journey. Like I have a certain soul on my journey that was really, really important. He was like the only person, the only man, the only male. I have lots of female friends like this, but the only male that I met that really, I felt that like higher frequency energy with, and it really, really activated me. It was like a Kundalini awakening, and it was really intense. When I first met him, I didn't sleep for like 6 days, and I just had like all this like crazy energy going on. And so it took me about 5 or 6 years to integrate that activation that I felt, but it was like this really high frequency, like higher timeline type of energy. It was kind of similar to what I was saying last time when I had that short pregnancy, and there was the Syrian being that came in and was like, do you remember this energy? Do you remember? This is where we came from, and this is where we were going. It was very similar to that, where it was like, oh my gosh, I started remembering things, and then it helped me to entrain and to do. So it was like and I had mentioned this before, where the remembrance about the Hieros Gamos and the polarities and the balancing of the polarities, the masculine and the feminine within. It just opened up that whole rose lineage journey, the divine feminine, the divine masculine, and what that means in terms of awakening out of the matrix. And so huge spiritual activation. And so he and I don't know, you might be watching this, he might watch these, I don't know, that's fine. I talk about everything, it's just how it is. But because it is a fractal and a collective movement. So a lot of you might be feeling this as well. So that's why I'm bringing it up. But we hadn't talked in maybe like 3 years, and just really went on our own passages and our own whatever things we needed to go through. For me, it was the awakening and really coming home to myself. And so we recently reconnected, just very briefly, but it's like even just a brief reconnection with an energy that holds that higher frequency for you. It's like, it's not a coincidence that that's happening in this energy. So there might be, and even like my son coming back into his home where he was raised originally, and into his town. And he would like, I remember when I did drumming classes here, and we go to the river and, just banging the sticks like he used to do when he was little, and like all these things coming back online. It's like things that are true to your nature or true to your journey or your awakening kind of surfacing back are around at this time, because there's the overlays or the karmic things or whatever you had to go through to clear the way for yourself and for others, for humanity, working on that collective level. We had to do that. Like my son, he had to go into his darkness, and now he's coming out. So I do feel also that there's a huge lightening and loosening of the masculine energy, either in our sons or our partners or our friends or whatever, but also within ourselves. That masculine energy. And so we were talking about this last time with the miscreations and with crying our souls back home, that feminine energy that's just kind of holds space. The soul in us, our intuitive nature, holds space for us to return to our intuition, and so for my son, it's like he's kind of coming back to mother. He's coming back to the mother energy. He's craving it. He's not pushing it away anymore. He's craving it. He's allowing it to instruct him and inform him, both within himself and with me, leaning towards me and just really valuing my opinion rather than not, how it was before he was sort of turned against me through some of our journey. and that all unraveling, but also within himself, and just listening to his intuition and choosing to stay with his intuition and his inner guidance, even if there are authorities or, things he used to distance his power to. Telling him something completely otherwise, it might make him doubt himself. And so I supported him through a journey with that this weekend, where everything, his intuition was validated, and everything he just it's like he stayed with his inner knowing, and the path opened for him, and now he's on this completely different trajectory, and it was so empowering, for him. It's like changed the trajectory of his life. And so that also being related to what I was saying about where the places that were leaking energy, or like, well, I'll give my power away to this because that's what I've been conditioned to do, and that's what I've always done. But when we take that risk, like for him, it was pretty scary. It's always scary when we're unplugging from a certain system and relying on our own intuition and our own knowing. So that's that distorted masculine energy that's looking outside of itself for approval, or just jumping through other people's hoops, turning and coming back to the inner feminine, back to that soul, back to that intuition, and listening to that, and honoring that, and trusting that it will guide you. So like with my son, like it all worked out. The path opened, and it keeps opening and keeps opening. And it's like he returned to his soul through this initiation, and it's a very worldly thing. It's just a very small thing, but it still involved him listening to his intuition and choosing based on that, and not on somebody's opinion outside of himself. And so, but again, just fractals of that same energy of our inner masculine energy, listening to and turning towards the soul, and just seeing it like large scale now. Like I often use my son as a barometer for the collective energies, just because he's the masculine energy that I adore the most, and just seeing, and he's somebody. Snail is his kind of spirit medicine, so like he crawled for a really long time. Like we didn't know if he was ever going to walk. Like he was crawling diagonal and forward and backward, and we were like, what is he doing? He's like trying to like discover like every little inch of what's possible with crawling. And then he just like one day got up and was like running and skipping and jumping. So he's really, really thorough, and I think he's a water sign. I think a lot of water signs are like that, where you kind of go into every little nook and cranny. You want to understand every little thing. How he's like that when he plays games too, like video games. He wants to explore all the territory, and he'll go really, really slowly. And it's just how he moves in life. And then once he goes in every like water, seep in every nook and cranny. You get down as far as you can into the soil, and you go around the rocks, and you go, you just do every little thing, and then you're ready, and then you go. So this sort of like quickening up, leveling type of energy happening. That's him as an example, right? He's my fractal, but for all of us, there's a quickening happening right now, where things that were stuck because it wasn't time yet, we had to do more of that clearing, are starting to move. Okay, so I feel to jump into the cards and see what else comes through. Around this energy. I'm going to do an overall energy for this energy. So, wow. Hawk Spirit, let Spirit be your guide. That's interesting because it's a number 5 card. So there's 2 and 3. Another card of change. I think we keep getting 5 cards as our overall energies. I'm not sure. But I've been talking a lot about the hawk medicine. If you've been listening to these readings and my personal journey with the hawk, the hawk is really around. And so there's that thing, that listening to your intuition. Let Spirit be your guide. Let your intuition be your guide. Lean into the synchronicity. Lean into the dreams. Leaning into that however Spirit speaks with you, through you, and allowing that to guide you. So that's kind of validating what I was just talking about with the masculine energy in us, our action energy. We're taking action on what our souls are saying. We're knowing that our soul and our higher selves have the map. They have the map, and they're trying to show us the best way for us to move forward in alignment with what we came here to do. And so just reading those signs and allowing them to guide you. But there's something that I keep wanting to stress around that, where like that courage and that leap of faith. And that's what the hawk was for me. It was a threshold energy. It was a threshold guide that would come through, that was just like, just keep going. You're not going to die. You're not going to die. You're not going to go crazy. You're not going to, and that's how the distorted energy, even in society, it's like, well, we have been killed, we have been outcast, we have been institutionalized and imprisoned. And So all of that is in our cellular memory, where it's like we're coming up against one of those thresholds where we can either go the conditioned way or the way we always have, or we can go through this new information that's coming through as we're creating this new earth timeline as we're meant to do. It's really loud right now. The intuition and the guidance is so loud. It's like almost impossible not to listen to it, but that fear can kick up. But just knowing as soon as you step towards it, the answer to that, it's almost like it's already coming to you. It's like you're not creating blindly, pulling things out of thin air. It's already, again, that soul journey. Your higher self already knows the story. It already knows the node points. It already knows what's written. So you're just intuiting what's coming, and then you're not blocking that. You're reaching out to it, and as you reach out, it's like, oh, thank you. I needed you to play your part. I needed you to play your part in that, and then boom, there it goes. But having that courage to move through, and that's where you break through that threshold. Hawks are about thresholds for me. So we've been talking about that recently too. And again, these readings, I feel that they're, it's like I'm talking about the edge that I'm on, but some of you might have already jumped through, the things that I'm talking about. So in that case, you're probably not watching. You're watching somebody else that's like further on the edge than I am. But some of you might want to listen to, 2 or 3 readings ago. Like you might be lining up, they might resonate for you, a little bit in the past. You know what I mean? I don't know how to say it. You know what I mean? It's like we're all going through these phases. We might be going through them at different times. So some of these past readings, that's why I refer to them in case you're like, oh, that's what I'm resonating with right now. Let me go back and listen to that one. So yeah, so my YouTube channel is Lineage of the Blue Rose Tarot. Last time I said it super fast. I was like, I don't know if anybody even heard that. And then on my Facebook page in the videos, you can find them as well as the titles. So anyway, but that threshold energy and moving through the threshold was something I was talking about maybe like 4 weeks ago. Yeah. But we're always coming up on new thresholds again, right? It's cyclical. So we go through these cycles over and over and over again, and each time we might be a little bit more conscious about them. They might go a little bit faster, or we're obviously going deeper, we're going deeper and pulling through different things. So these themes are going to keep going. We go through we withdraw our energy, we pull back our energy, we have more of our energy, that Queen of Wands type of thing where we're magnetizing things towards us. Then we go through that threshold, and then there's the goblins on the gate, and we got to keep going, and then we're in that void space, and then things start to open up. So that's what I'm feeling right now, the things opening up and moving very quickly. Let's see what else. Here, 22 minutes. Oh, wow, the 8 of Earth. So the 8 of Earth is often a card of mastery. It's like the thing that you're working on or that you have been working on. And so it's interesting, the colors too, and even the colors that I'm wearing, I always notice when I'm matching, just the energy, the colors, the frequency coming through with the colors. But yeah, so something that you're working on, something that you're mastering, it is an Earth card of Pentacles. So it can be about the Earth, traditional readers will be like, oh, it's about money, it's about this. For me, it's about the Earth trek. It's about embodiment. It's about anchoring this higher timeline that we've all been subconsciously or consciously working on for however long. If you're here and you're resonating with these readings, is like part of what we're here for, is for the shift to build the new. And so that's what we're doing, and that's the mastery. And this can go back lifetimes as well, where you've been working on this over and over and over again at all the training that you've had, and landing now. It's like you have everything that you need. There's a node point type of energy with this. That's really what I'm feeling also with the energies that came through this weekend, where it's like, it's not just like, oh, a solar flare helping us kick off some stuff, or helping us, activate our DNA. It's like, it's like above and below and within and in every little arm and reach. It's like there's just something that's just rising. And it's like with the elementals and with our souls and with our, like, we can't turn, it's like a siren. We can't turn away anymore. We have to, we have to listen. We have to walk this path. It's just this node point energy. We've prepared for this for lifetimes. Let's see what else. We get. So this is the King of Pentacles. The King of Pentacles in this deck. So it's really interesting. This older man and then his granddaughter, and they're elves. This is my tarot of the hidden realm. This is the Fey realm. So there's that elemental energy as well. Another pentacle, another earth. So it's like, what is of the earth? What is of nature? What is that elemental telluric realm where it's like a blueprint. It's like the mirror image of us. So these fractals of everything. It's like, it's really, this reading is really emphasizing like Gaia, the clearing of these ley lines, the activation of the energies of the earth, the medicine that the earth is offering us right now, in these clearings and in this communication. And so he's like a steward, he's a steward of the earth. We are stewards of the earth, but the earth is stewards of us too. This small child, that innocence, the truth codes in nature, the truth codes in the elementals, that is bringing him back. There's some of that polarity, that Heros Gamos energy in that too. His attention is on the soul life. It's on that pure transmission. It's like looking in the right direction. Not looking away, not looking to the program, not looking to the matrix, not looking for outside approval. It's like it's leaning into that which is rising and getting louder and louder. Yeah. Okay. It's funny. I was driving to with my daughter in the car, and I was like really hot and sweaty, and I like pulled down the visor, and the mirror was open, and I saw myself, and I was like, I look like an elf. I was like, I look exactly like an elf right now. I don't know if I still do, but I really did in the car, and I feel that in me. I feel my elf self. Somebody was writing to one of my dear friends. She was writing to me, and she said, my God, it came out instead of God's self. She said God elf, and I was like, yes, you're God elf. There it is again. It's like our inner fae, our inner fairy, our inner, Garthian, whatever it is. Those aspects of ourselves are also coming online as it comes online in the because it's all fractals, and we have all these archetypes within us. We have all these aspects within us. So it's arising within us as well, which might also be why I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm always kind of like that. Nature, but even more so, where it's like that part of me that, in some other realm or dimension or lifetime just lived in the forest all the time, like this is what's real, just really connecting with that elemental part of ourselves, connecting with other parts of ourselves. Maybe other people are connecting with other aspects of ourselves, but I'm really noticing and resonating with the fae, the elemental realm, the elves, all of that, and seeing it in other people as well, and seeing other people speaking about and doing the same thing, and just feeling that, or even dressing that way, where you just want to express those different parts of yourself. Okay, so let's see what else. We get here. All right, so we get 2 cards. Oh yeah, the Knight of Wands. So that's a quickening energy. That's a very fast moving energy. And there's that fire again, that orange. A lot of this orange, the fire. Even though we have a lot of pentacle energy, it's like it's a spirit-led earth trek. It's a spirit-led earth trek. And so the Knight of Wands is an unstoppable type of energy. There's an inevitability with this energy, and it's moving fast. Nothing's going to stop you. And so that's what I was talking about also with the overlays and all those sort of karmic situations that we had to go through, all the things we had to, like the debts we had to pay or the crunches we had to have so we could pull the veils off of our eyes. It's like we've done enough of that. Collectively, we've done enough of that even if you haven't done a lot of that personally, it's going to go faster for you because, you signed up to do it differently. You signed up, you were working on other things. You were anchoring other things for humanity. It's like we're all playing our parts, but that kind of work is going to go faster for you than it did for some of us that were like trudging through the dark, with our little candles, like, lighting the fire and like, okay, I got one, and somebody else across the world gets another. The pathway's been lit, so it's going to be easier. But then also, wherever you're at in that trajectory, if you are someone who's been hauling your motherfucking ass off, for decades, it's like things are about to roll, and that's really what I'm feeling. The 8 of Swords, yeah, exactly. Okay, so the 8 of Swords, could you have any other perfect card for being all tied up? She's blindfolded, she's tied, there's swords all around her, and that's how it's been for a really long time for humanity and for all of us. And that's just not the case anymore. I love that these came together. It's like, no, you're not tied up anymore. You're all, you're all freed, and you're on your horse, and you got a horse, and you got, what's going on here? There's fire. Yeah, you had your fire. You warmed up over the night. You got your soul embers going. So, what was it? One of my kids talking about, I think it was Arame, she was talking about, because in Ayurvedic system, she's very kapha, she's kapha, so she was talking about how she was like all water, and like just the water like put out her fire, and she just, because kapha can be kind of slow, and they can kind of, be just not a lot of movement, but she's getting her fire back. She's like a perfect example of this, where it's like, and I was saying to her, like, well, that ember was still there, it wasn't completely doused, that ember was still there, and then it dried out enough. So actually we were talking about that in the last reading with the crying of the tears and all the water, and like just the movement of the energy, and the clearing everything that was kind of in the way. Sometimes we need those tsunamis to move stuff, and then as it dries out, it's like that ember, that spark can come back. Yeah, and there it is, turning into a fire, that phoenix rising, coming back. That kind of energy was coming up in the last reading as well, where we were shit, what was it? I completely lost my train of thought because I started thinking about the cards, because I was like, oh, did I use this deck already? Anyway, I forget what I was going to say. That's fine. Oh yeah, the return with the Six of Cups and the Seven of Wands. That energy still feels so potent to me, where it's like you're returning to something. You're returning to something. What are we returning to? We're returning to our soul. We're returning to that guidance that was with us when we were a small child, playing in nature, or playing with our imagination, where we hadn't been siphoned off from that soul life. And then later we got conditioned, and we thought that, we gotta grow up now, gotta be an adult, do the thing that everybody does, and returning back to that and realizing, oh, you've held so much wisdom, like you knew all along, and that little one inside of you is like, I've been waiting all this time. I've just been waiting. I've been waiting for you to, to do what you needed to do, do what you needed to do. And that's our souls. It reminds me of this song. Yeah, maybe I'll post that song. I'm liking that, posting songs. I don't know if anybody listens, but songs really capture the energy of certain things, and there's codes in them. So I figure if it came to my mind, I'll just share it, because there's the kind of codes of that energy in that. So I'll post that in the comments, or in the description box if we're on YouTube. So okay, let's see what else here. See where we're at. I might make this I might make this a little shorter. I always say that, I never do, but I might. The eight of Cups. So this is the card of walking away. So there we are, leaving that matrix life, and you have everything you need. In fact, you don't really have much, because you let so much go. You have a little satchel, you got your wand, you got your cape, you got your wizard's hat. What more do you leave? Like when our fire was here, and like I wasn't evacuated, I was in town, it was pretty far away, but I did think like things could go wrong if the rains don't come, like I could be evacuated. And I was thinking about like, what would I take? I was like, well, I take my favorite Hoya that's finally blooming. I take my sunny boots. If you live in town, you know about sunny boots. There's this man here that makes these like buffalo leather, or like these awesome leather boots, I'd take my sunny boots. I'd take some crystals. I'd take my cats. I'd take all 6 cats. And so, that kind of thing. But just, you just find your priorities. You're leaving, the teacher reminded me, leaving that all behind. But, this is that moment where you're kind of looking back, where you're kind of like, and maybe that was part of that energy that I was talking about last week, that you might still be feeling, where, just like crying and releasing and being like, oh my gosh, I can't believe like how bad that was, or I can't believe how I consented to that, or I can't believe I let it get that far, and just crying those tears of release, acknowledging it all, because for a while, maybe you had to just kind of like buck up and see if it was going to work, or you had to go through all the trials, or, but now it's like being far enough out where you can really look at it. So there's that kind of, a similar kind of energy again, where you're looking back, you're going to walk out the door, but you're looking back one last time, where you're kind of like, wow, that was a whole life. That was a whole empire. That was a whole, it seemed so real, it seemed so real, and this is the point where you're like, but it's not, and so you just say goodbye. But that kind of goodbye being important, and that's what was coming up in that last reading as well, with the tears and the releasing and the acknowledgement. And the 8 of Cups is a card of, in the first deck I ever had, the Mother Peace deck, it was an octopus, and so there were like eight different arms, and like every single one of those arms has a different emotion. The cups are about emotion, and so a lot of conflicting emotions, where you're feeling everything on such a deep level. So that's kind of how it was with that energy from the last reading, if you haven't seen that, where you're just feeling it all, and you can kind of feel like you're drowning in it, but it is part of the process of letting go and moving on, where you are taking that last look. But when you take the look, it's not really from your mind, it's from your cells, it's from your memories, it's from your pain body, it's from your all the different emotions that you didn't allow yourself to feel fully. And it just comes through like a tsunami, and it cleanses you out. And that being a really important part of that walking on, and that going behind, because you can't take anything with you, but you can't release it unless you feel it. So you have to sit with it, and you have to feel it in order to release it, and then you can go through that door. So that's interesting. Yeah, so it definitely feels like some of that energy is still around. I think our rains are going to start to come in as we're talking about the water. Oh my gosh, That's so cool. That happened in that last reading as well. Up there she is, the Queen of Wands. We get her in every single reading, so there she is again. And that's where we're at when we do let everything go, and we're not leaking our energy to things that don't match us, or things that hold us down, things we have to stay small for, things that that, like my son, you know, that just like counter, like just don't match what his intuition is telling him, and then just like totally turning on yourself to go for some authority opinion, this and that. We stop doing that, our circuitry is intact. And when our circuitry is intact, we're magnetic. And when we're magnetic, what are we magnetizing from? Our own soul signature, our own soul's essence. And then we start pulling in that which is truly a match to us instead of that which is not. You know, so you walk through this door, and you walk through that portal, and you walk into your own manifestation. So that's kind of that void energy as well, what I was talking about, when you leave that stuff behind and you go into that void space, and you're like, it's dark though, and I can't see, and I don't know if anything is going to be here. Is this where I go crazy? Is this where I, you know, finally get possessed? I was always afraid of possession when I was younger, which is funny because I did experience some of that, both myself and my daughter, you know, but it's like, again, you know, like, am I going to die? Am I going to be outcast? Am I going to be, you know, whatever it is, whatever those fears are, am I going to go crazy? Am I going to go insane? But you go anyway, because you know you have to, and that's part of, and because, you know, you're being guided, and your soul is telling you, again, like my son, you know, that there's a path there, even if you can't see it, that as you walk it and you step through that, the path will appear. And not only will the path appear, but things you didn't even know were possible, you know, things you didn't even know were possible, because you're in a different frequency now. You're out of the fourth dimensional frequency where you're held down and you're siphoned off of, and you're magnetizing from your own self-worth and self-abandonment. Here you're magnetizing from your own self-love and connection, and so it's a different realm. Different things are possible, different laws of physics, different rules apply, but walking through that door to find out, you have to leap before you have to believe before you see. you have to believe it before you see it, and then you see it, and then you can believe it more, you know, that feedback loop. So and a lot of us feeling that, a lot of us, and I know that's what happened for my son, and that's what I said to him, like, this was like a node point where now you've experienced this, and now you know next time you have an intuition that you aren't sure if you know you can trust, you know, you start to memorize the frequency of intuition. And I had the same thing where I was like, honey, I just feel it's gonna work out for you, like I just feel that in the field. And for me, I was like, oh, I hope I'm not wrong. You know, like I'll have to like go through some stuff if I'm wrong about that, but I wasn't, you know. And so you start to notice, you know, when you have that same sort of frequency, the frequency of certainty, the frequency of intuition, the frequency of guidance, and the more you trust it and you have it validated, the more you can trust it again. And you start to know, you can start to tell when there's a little bit of conflict, or a little bit of, you're like, am I really done with this? Is this really coming through, or is there a little bit more that I have to be able to read the energy? You know, there's a little bit more that has to be cleared, so it's going to take a little longer. Or, you know, or you know, like floodgates, you know, it's just wide open. Again, this energy is just wide open, where, you know, you can move, but being able to read the energy of this card is one of wide open. The energy of this is you're all tied up. Well, the energy of this can be applied to the energy of a situation. Does it feel like this, or does it feel like this? You know, using your intuition. Again, letting spirit be your guide, you know, when it's time to go, or when it's time to go within and do more unraveling, you know, do more of this sort of closure, walking away work, reading the energy, and knowing that the more that you do this sort of loosening and walking away of this type of stuff, the more you're going to have this wide open field, you know, this wide open field that's going to bring you into this, right? So just talking about the energy, how it works, you know, and knowing where you're at in the process. It's kind of like the moon cycles as well. Like when you're in the full moon, it feels a certain way. When you're in the dark moon, before the new moon, you know, that's when, that's the tricky part. When, you know, like, just if you notice the moon cycles, like, it's always the dark moon where a lot of us will feel, we'll just feel kind of insecure, kind of lost, you know, the void space. Yeah, the void space again, you know, where you don't know. But what's after the void space is the new moon. Then you see it, you know, you hold through, and then you see it in the sky, and then it grows again, you know. So that cyclical nature, and that is the feminine energy as well. So leaning into the feminine, earth-based, again, the earth. Remember all these earths, you know, what does nature tell us? How does nature guide us? Nature is the feminine, nature is the soul, nature is connected to all that is. So allowing that to inform and guide you, leaning into it as you leave this sort of matrix programming that only ever brought you falsehood and misery and pretense and imitation, you know. Wow, okay, so the next card that we get is the World card. Yes, so that is the last major arcana in the deck. So you've been all around the wheel. You've gone through all the different archetypes. You've had that surrender of the Fool, where you go through, and then you've had that spark of desire, where you're calling in, you're using your elements, the Magician, trusting your intuition, the High Priestess, the Empress, embodying it in your body, bringing it down into fruition, on and on and on. You go all the way through all the different things, moving forward, balancing your polarities, going through the dark shadow of the moon, and then the illumination of the sun. I'm not even doing them in order, but anyway, you land up in the world. You complete the cycle. And so that's what I was saying, and what a lot of us were feeling from the energies this weekend, a real completion energy. Completion with this, completion with the trapping systems, and a moving through, quickening, moving through. So, so it might be slow, but there is this completion. This completion has happened. We've walked through that portal. Wow. So there's that lion again. The lion, I had to stop a reading because I forgot to turn off my cooler. Anyway, I had to adjust my settings in here, for temperature wise. And but I had already started the reading, and the card that we got as the overall energy, which is about as far as I got, was the lion. And it was being generous of spirit, but what it was coming through for me as was just sort of this like open field, this open flow where like this, it was this kind of energy. And so there's that lion again. What else do we have here? Oh, the cow. I guess that's sort of like a bull type of energy, but that also is representing the endless. The miracles are endless. That's how it is in my animal deck. The cow and the bull are like endless miracles, open to endless miracles. The abundant universe will provide, this type of thing. And so we're just in this place where we're here to receive. So that's the other thing that I have been feeling. It's like for a long time, the name of the game was doing the shadow work and cleaning up and going through, if it's not time to get out yet, then you got to eat that bowl of shit until it's done, until you can transmute it. And you had to go through the tunnels you were in. You couldn't spiritually bypass out of them. You couldn't get a high out of them. You had to walk through that tunnel. And now with the completion, walking through that tunnel, it's like the name of the game is changing. And so there's something that's been coming through for me over and over and over again, and it relates to my son as well, and it relates to listening to your intuition, where it's like figure out what you want, and what you want is connected to your soul. Your desires are connected to your soul, because remember, again, our souls and our higher selves already know the plan, and so they're whispering to you, and they're showing you that which excites you, or that which feels like home to you, or that which reminds you of yourself, or whatever it is. Or that which feels like the correct path, or that which feels like my son, feels right to him. He's like, it just feels wrong. It feels like I'm going backwards if I go down this road, right? That, or that which feels expansive, or that which excites you, or all these things, right? Shit, I forgot I always do that, and I always express it in the same way. I forgot where I was going. Oh yeah. So, the co-creation, we're creating, but we're creating from our soul desire. So whatever it is that feels like that soul spark, again, the fire and the spark and the desire, it's coming from your intact circuitry. And so you can trust it. If it's coming from the outside, then it's a program and it's a conditioning and it's more of this. But if it's coming from you, then it's part of your soul journey. That's part of your, part of the way that your spirit, your higher self is communicating with you, and taking action on those things, moving forward in those ways, and then trusting that the path will unfold, and so being committed to your desires, and being committed to the whispers of your soul. So I guess I've already said it. I felt like it was like this new thing that I hadn't talked about yet. But no, I already talked about that. But it keeps coming through over and over and over again, where what is meant for us is coming. So there's another friend of mine that has had this project that he's been working on for 20 years, and it's like finally landing for him. And it's just like this huge, I'll talk about it more once I have more details, and I know it's for sure happening, but like this huge thing, that he just felt really guided to stay with for a very, very long time, to the point where he might have thought like he was freaking crazy, because it's just like, just so out there, and yet it's happening. And so that perseverance with your with whatever it is that feels aligned for your soul journey, and persevering with it, because again, the way is open, and there is this quickening, and we've done that work where it's like things that have been in the works for a long time are starting to come through. And then again, like this, sky's the limit. Where we're in a new field now. We're in a new game. We're in a new set of rules. Where things are happening that weren't possible in the old game. In the Matrix, in the fourth dimensional trapping system, which is part of the journey. We're here to awaken. We're here to go through this. We're here to play this game. But again, the rules of the game are changing, and we're and so to again, just getting your polarities intact, leaning into that inner feminine part of you, that intuitive part of you that knows what's next for you, and staying with it and trusting in the path opening now. Okay, so I'm going to do a couple more cards. I'm just going to finish this row. And we have harmony, exactly. That harmonization of all of the parts. And that's what happens when we walk through into the portal, into the higher frequencies, into those higher dimensions. Things start to harmonize. We're not in that duality. We don't have our polarities fragmented there together. And then we can move forward. We can move forward into our expansion, into that light body activation as well. There's that Merkaba symbol there where we're accessing more and more and more of ourselves. So again, that energy of the miracles, that which you didn't even know were possible, are possible now because you have more of you, and you're not fragmented apart away from yourself. You are connected with all that is, and that all flooding in this almost feels like a fountain to me. A fountain. It's all coming. Yeah, it's all coming. It's so amazing. It's so amazing because we've been at this for eons. Again, remember, we've been at this for eons. We've trained for this. We've worked for this. We came encoded for this and with this. And it's starting to actually happen. We always knew it would. Some part of us always knew it would. But then when you're in this energy, you can really doubt, and you can, and that's part of it. Just getting really lost and having to break your chains off with the power of your conviction. But yeah, so something about this weekend, the energies that came through this weekend, and again, like I was saying, the cosmic energies and the earth energies, the deep inner earth energies, there's an awakening, there's an awakening, and there's a reunion. This is a reunion energy as well. All the pieces that were fragmented, harmonizing back together all around, no matter what it looks like. No matter what it looks like. If things have gotten, and this is what we were talking about, this is what we were talking about in the last reading as well, when things got so out of whack, and just like crying those rivers back home of like, I can't believe that we got so separated. But part of those tears, that fountain releasing everything to flow back into its original state, that original harmonization, which is the truth of this realm outside of the hijack. So the last card that we get, the final message, starting and beginning with this leaning into your intuition, leaning into that which is guiding you, which is your feminine self, your soul, your higher self, your guides, however you want to think of it, spirit, God, creator, guiding you, but accessed through your intuition, through that alignment of your energy centers. Our energy centers have been hijacked as well. We've been leaking and feeding and plugged into, and they've been a source of hijack, of siphoning off. And so again, reclaiming your center, your own energy, your own energetic circuitry, where it's all yours and you're not leaking any of it, and nobody is parasiting off of you. Nothing is parasiting off of you, so that you can hear and you can take action. So beautiful closing message. Again, really coming through that portal where we have both of our polarities intact and being able to create from that space. So I feel like I was talking really fast. There was a lot coming through, and hopefully I made sense. Hopefully I wasn't just kind of repeating myself over and over again, but every time I go back and listen, it feels coherent to me. So thank you for listening, and I hope that was helpful for you. There is a lot of gorgeous energy going around that I feel came through in these cards, so a lot of transmissions in this energy, and I will post that sound. I'm going to listen to it and see if it's as relevant as I think. So yeah, much love to you, and wow, riding these waves and moving through all the phases that we're moving through, and just knowing that we are walking through that portal into this new earth energy, and we're really moving along. This, to me, getting the world card, we haven't gotten the world card in a long time. So again, the cycles going through around the cycles and just coming through a whole next level of rebirth right now. So all right, well, I will see you next time if I do. Thank you for listening.